Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Contender. I'm Congresswoman Erin Houchin, representing Indiana's 9th District. Today, we're bringing you a special episode. Recently, I had the opportunity to sit down with Congressman Dan Crenshaw of Texas and Congressman Mike Flood of Nebraska for a discussion on Web 3.0, stablecoins, and the future of cryptocurrency. These are critical topics shaping our economy and the way we think about innovation, security, and financial freedom in the digital age. I'm excited to share this conversation with you. Enjoy.
Welcome back, folks. Erin, Mike, thanks for being on. So I'll introduce exactly who you all are in just a second. But for the audience listening, today's episode, which obviously you're going to give 5 stars to, otherwise, why are you even bothering? It's going to be about another great topic that I think is really high on people's minds, which is cryptocurrency. And from our perspective here in Congress, how do we actually regulate it? Should we regulate it? What's going too far? You mentioned before we were talking, some countries are ahead of us. We're a little bit behind. I'm going to ask you, I don't even know what you mean by that. I'm not on financial services. Both of you are. So you deal with this on a daily basis. And I think this conversation started because I overheard you just talking about it. And I was like, you guys sound kind of smart on this issue. Maybe we should do a podcast. And that's why we're here. So real quick, Erin Houchin represents Indiana's 9th District, served 8 years in the Indiana Senate before joining Congress. She's on Education and Workforce Committee and the Rules Committee, and brings a strong background to this discussion. Congressman Mike Flood represents Nebraska's 1st District, not only a seasoned attorney, but also founder of a news channel in Nebraska, served about a decade in the Nebraska legislature. Real quick, do the voice.
Well, I'm a radio guy, so.
Sorry, put you on the spot.
That Skywatch weather forecast today, we'll see clear skies in 65. Right now, 14.
Hell yeah.
It's quite a temperature.
Hell yeah. So we've all heard of Bitcoin. We know what Bitcoin is. There's a lot, obviously, other cryptocurrencies out there. Bitcoin, was it the first?
Bitcoin was the first.
Was first, 2008 came. Goal was ambitious. It was create a currency that's free of government control. So it's kind of this I don't know, cyber anarchy, punk, whatever kind of movement.
DeFi.
But, yeah. What is that?
DeFi.
What does that mean?
Decentralized.
Decentralized.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm so uncool with the lingo, right? And this is why
this digital assets appeal mostly to younger men in America. And anybody that grew up with a cell phone from the day they were born basically understands one thing: everything's on your phone. And that's how we get to this place.
And digital assets are more than a currency. Digital assets can be anything that is in electronic form, only in electronic form. So think of MP3s, music. That can be a digital asset. Movies that are only electronic can be a digital asset.
NFTs,
non-fungible tokens.
I still don't get NFTs. Like, people are still buying those, right?
Think of them like the Beanie Babies
of
the internet.
Yeah, an NFT. So if you think of a big, Beanie Babies. If you think
we need to unpack a lot.
That's right.
Like, what do you mean by
babies? That's right. But a Bitcoin is a digital currency is 1 Bitcoin equals 1 Bitcoin. Yeah. But an NFT can have a variety of value. So if you think of an NFT like a piece of art, it can be subjective.
It's a unique digital art piece. Mm-hmm. I just don't understand why I'd buy one. Do you guys own one?
No.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't own any digital assets.
I don't own any digital assets either.
As somebody that's on financial services, I don't have any digital assets because we are literally writing the law in this area. But
that makes sense.
I think one of the things people have to realize is the U.S. dollar is the world's reserve currency. It is used in 55% of transactions around the world, and it gives us enormous diplomatic, military, just authority and power where we don't have to fire a rifle to get any kind of command of a situation in Africa. Africa is booming. A lot of those economies in those African countries are nascent in terms of getting industrialized and everything else. There's a lot of value down there. Russia, China, Brazil, India, they want to be in Africa. They want to be in those countries. And when I think about digital assets, I think about, obviously, the commodity side is Bitcoin, but the stable coin, one stable coin equals $1, and that dollar has to be in a U.S. bank under our proposed regime. That allows people in continents like Africa to to exchange money for goods using a digital asset that's backed by the US dollar. And if we don't rush into this with real good regulatory authority and something that's stable and reliable, we risk China, Russia, Brazil, India taking over the world's reserve currency.
Okay, so I'm going to unpack that. What seems like a profound statement, but I think needs some translation to the lesser minds, mine included. I think what you're saying is, okay, so a couple truths here. It's important for the U.S. that the dollar remains the base currency.
Right.
Okay, and no one disputes that. It's something we're all worried about. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. That also deserves another conversation right after this about how under threat we actually are, because that's a concern I hear from voters sometimes. But that has little to do with crypto. But maybe it does, which is kind of what you're saying. So I think I'm trying to rehash what you said and see if I get it. Crypto plays a role in keeping our dollar as the base reserve currency because they're going to use it anyway, basically.
That's basically so other countries are advancing in creating their own central bank digital currencies. We don't want to have a central bank digital currency in the United States because we prefer not having one entity control.
Yeah. And there's been a ton of backlash against that idea, because people feel like it's the government's ability to
control
then
your
just see
finances.
Everything you're doing, and I tend to agree with that logic, right?
That's true. And you've got the situation that happened up in Canada where the truckers were on strike and they had access to PayPal, and then they took all of that away from them, so they could not accept any more resources. We've seen Operation Choke Point where regulations.
I never heard about that.
Yeah, so if we have a
there.
central bank digital currency, then the government could come in and say, we don't like your politics, so we're going to shut off your access to your capital.
So does Canada have a
That's just an example.
That was just the truckers.
Just an example of how they utilized a payment system to close off access to resources.
And it just so
to
happened that these truckers in particular, a lot of their livelihood was governed through PayPal.
Well, people were making donations to the truckers so they could maintain the strike. Yeah. So in the United States, we do not have a regulatory regime. We passed our bill Fit 21, which creates a regime. But the problem with that is that's why we had a situation happen like FTX, because it's the wild, wild west, and there was no prohibition, but no structure. With the stable coin, if you have we're
going to need to define these terms, by the way.
Okay, let's back up. So,
because you mentioned that about the Africa example, and I found myself not understanding exactly what stablecoin was.
Okay, so one of the failures of the Biden administration, and there are many, was Gary Gensler. He was like a fountain of bad ideas at the SEC. And instead of working with Congress on developing market structure for digital assets, he chose instead to govern through enforcement actions where one day he'd be over here, the next day he'd be over here. He'd give special authority to these folks and not these folks, and he'd do this to one bank and then he'd let them off.
So regulatory whack-a-mole.
It was bad. It is bad. What we have to do...
FTC, all of them. Honestly, the business world is breathing a deep sigh of relief as Kamala Harris lost the election for that reason, right?
So there's two very important regulators in this space. There is the SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission, and the CFTC, which regulates commodities. And the basic premise of Patrick McHenry's bill that's sitting and languishing right now in the Senate that passed...
As all good things go to die,
right,
including some people.
That got 70 Democratic votes in the House. Yeah. Is what is a security and what is a commodity. And Bitcoin, under the definition of the law that we drafted, is a commodity regulated by the CFTC.
That makes sense.
Stablecoin, which is one stablecoin equals $1 in a U.S. bank, is a security. If Fit 21 did anything, it answered the basic question of which regulator was in charge. That's all we need to do really to start this process and make sure that our states can participate. Instead, we find a situation where authorities in Singapore and the UAE and countries like England, the United Kingdom, they see an opportunity to have a regulatory regime before the United States has it. And the reality is, unless we do something, this thing doesn't happen the right way.
What's an example of a stable coin? And I like that you call Bitcoin a commodity. That's always, as I started to think about this issue over time, I realized it is a commodity. It's a stock. I mean, the price is completely based on supply and demand and how many people are buying it, which is exactly how a stock price changes. So how else can you call it? You can't call it anything else but it's not even quite a commodity because it's not a literal thing. But in any case, it's as close to a commodity as possible. It's not a dollar. Because there was at a time there was all this talk about crypto overtaking the dollar, like we were moving into this world, and I was like, I don't see that ever happening. It doesn't make sense to me. I think you agree. You're shaking your heads, but I mean, you're nodding your heads. What is a stable coin though? What
Stablecoins, I think, are more important than Bitcoin. It's basically $1 US has to be in a US bank, and you issue a digital stablecoin. Okay. So let's say
we don't have these yet. There's no name. Or is there a brand?
There are some stablecoins, but they're not appropriately regulated. And that's why you see a lot of people go offshore, like she mentioned, FTX, other places like that.
What's an example of a stablecoin? Sorry, I just want to, for the audience and myself, I don't even know what these are.
Oh.
I don't know that there are any brand name like stable coins.
Yeah, we don't really have them established. There's a company that's in Nebraska called Telcoin that's working through the system to try and create a stable coin.
And perhaps they're not established because there's no regulatory framework for them to establish into. Is that kind of the problem?
But here's the beautiful thing about digital assets. Digital assets plus the blockchain. Mm-hmm. And the blockchain is something that can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But think of the blockchain as the world's best digital ledger.
Okay.
And so let's take blockchain technology and let's put it in real estate deeds. You know, it used to be when I started practicing law, if you wanted to do an abstract of a title, you'd have to go back to 1864 when the president and the Congress gave a farmer 160 acres. And then you'd have to check the chain of custody by looking at every deed all the way up until the proposed transaction that you were warranting the deed that it was accurate. Think of a system that was instantaneous, like blockchain, where the minute something changed, everything was absolutely correct in the ledger. Now apply that to stablecoins. Let's say I'm a Texas farmer and I need to buy a very important piece of machinery from Italy to run my dairy. And that machinery is going to cost me $759,000. Using digital assets and the blockchain, that transaction is instantaneous. Right now, if you send money to Italy, you've got to go through a clearinghouse. Your bank has to communicate with their banks over there. This makes worldwide transactions immediately possible and 100% correct. It also traces the money better than our current banking system. So when people say to me, oh, terrorists are using crypto, here's what I say. If you apply the blockchain technology, we're going to know exactly what on-ramps and off-ramps they get instantaneously, and it will actually improve our ability to track down bad actors.
For a while it was harder, and then we caught up to it. That's my understanding, because I just doing the cartel stuff all the time, and then the following the money. It was hard at first, but once you have the right programs in place, it actually becomes very easy to track these people. If you have the right licenses and programs.
Go ahead.
Well, one of the beautiful things about the stablecoin being based on the US dollar is that the more and more that transaction is being used, it allows our US regulators to get into the middle of these transactions worldwide using the blockchain technology and finding out where the cartels are. Now, they're probably not going to want to use some US bank stablecoin, but at the end of the day, our financial system is the most well-regarded and stable game in the world.
So in fact, I'm still going to harp on this stablecoin thing. So as a regular American citizen, why should we be excited about the advent of a stablecoin? What does that do for me as an American?
Well, you can use a stable coin for payments. It can be an additional secure form of payment. You can use that for foreign exchange currency, which makes that much easier. Even though we have the ability now, if I go to Italy, I can use my credit card. Sure. But a stable coin just creates an easier way to make a transaction. It's pegged
to the dollar. It kind of has the benefit of having the dollar, but also the benefit of the blockchain technology. Am I saying that maybe correctly?
So imagine you're working at a packing plant somewhere in the United States and your family's in Guatemala and you're wiring them money. There are wire fees associated with that. This is going to bring down the cost of moving your assets around the world save hardworking dollars for people that are earning them and allow them to transfer that asset quickly.
Interesting. So saying goodbye to like exchange rate fees, that kind of thing.
I also think
lowers them.
I also think it could increase the stability and the value of the U.S. dollar. Because if we're able to get this right ahead of, let's say, China making a stable coin, then the United States will maintain its world dominance as the currency of choice.
So
If we fail to do it, then we are ceding ground and undermining the U.S. dollar to China. So,
and all it takes to fail, by the way, is what? Just not passing this damn bill.
Not passing the bill.
And all the bill does is just say who's in charge, which is often, it's funny, just as a quick civics lessons to everyone listening. We had this case with, this is the same with the drones. The drones flying over New Jersey right now. Like, you know what this problem comes down to? We haven't said who's in charge. And so an agent, that's not the agency's fault. Everybody likes to yell at the FBI or whatever. It's like, it's our fault or the president's fault. In this case,
though, I do think it is I think this is largely an agency fault problem, although it does require legislation.
Yeah.
But because you have Gary Gensler saying that Bitcoin is a commodity, but Ether is a security.
So what's Ether?
Ether is a digital asset.
Okay. What kind of digital asset?
It's a digital currency.
I told you this would be like a crypto 101 conversation.
Right.
Like this is
I
deal in energy and I deal in other issues.
I think there's a lot of people that are anti-crypto that think this whole issue is going away.
Yeah, it's not.
Digital assets are here to stay. They are not going anywhere. And if you walk into any business school in America with a bunch of 20, 21, 22-year-old business students, this is where they gravitate to. Like, I'm 49. I've grown up my entire life thinking about fiat currency. So have all of us.
I have not grown up always thinking about fiat currency.
Well, okay, it reminds me of like the kid. It's like if I went to go snow skiing the first time, I would be scared to death of everything. If a kindergartner goes snow skiing the first time, they're fearless. People that are interested in finance are very vested in digital assets because everything is on their phone. They do everything on their phone. Some of them don't want to be banked. They want to custody their own assets. So yes, there's the stablecoin part, there's the Bitcoin part, and then there's a huge issue called custody. How do you want to protect your assets? I want them custodied in U.S. banks because we have the best banking system in the world. We have the most diverse banking system in the world. There are a lot of people in this country that want to disconnect from the banks.
Yeah.
And what does custody look like for them? At the end of the day, these are the kinds of questions we have to answer. It affects payments. It affects the ability for us to maintain our currency, the world's reserve currency. It is foreign relations. And more than anything, we can't let China, Russia, Brazil, India be the country of choice.
And when crypto first came on the scene, people were afraid that it might undermine the U.S. dollar because it's this new thing. And there was a lot of uncertainty. Just like when the advent of the internet came, people were afraid of what the internet could be, and they thought it was only for nefarious purposes. And that was the reputation that cryptocurrency got at first, that it was only for gambling or
laundering,
money laundering, the worst
North
of the worst of the internet, and that it would somehow undermine the U.S. dollar. So the American public was a little bit fearful of it. I think the more we learn about it, especially like Congressman Flood and I, we traveled to Singapore, we went to UAE, we went around learning about how these other countries are handling digital assets, and I became convinced through committee work, through all the research that we've done, that we have to have this regulatory structure or we are going to undermine the U.S. dollar through the threat of these other countries who are advancing faster than we are.
So Trump has designated a crypto czar. We have somebody, what was his name? What?
David Sachs.
David Sachs, right. So what do you think of that? Is that a step in the right direction? At least there's going to be somebody focused on this.
Yeah, I think anything is a step in the right direction from where we are, because we've basically put our heads in the sand under the Biden administration. And it's as if they think if I don't look at digital assets, they don't exist.
Yeah.
So putting this emphasis on it, putting somebody in the administration on it.
AI is very much in this category too. Like, what the hell do we do?
Yeah.
Well, let me back, if you're interested, let me give you the 30,000 foot view of digital assets. So in 1995, like Erin was saying, think of this as the internet 1.0. It was full of fraud, porn, sex trafficking, terrible things. What did the United States do? We created a foundation. We said, no, illicit images of children are felonies. We laid out rules and guardrails. And because we did that, Internet 2.0 comes along in 2002, and Facebook comes in. Twitter's on board. You've got Amazon. You've got all these major tech players that like 80 or 90% of all internet traffic rolls through. And what did we do in the first 20 years of the century? We gave these tech giants all of our information, all of my data. They know my birthdays. They know my kids' names. They know what TV shows I like to watch. They know everything about me. And what did they do with that? They took that data that I shared with them for free and they monetized it, making billions and billions and billions of dollars. What's coming next is Web 3.0. In Web 3.0, using digital assets, using my data, if I give my data, whether it's my birthdays or my opinions on the government or whatever it is, if I give that to a tech company, the idea is that I will get a digital asset of some sort in return, to where I am not giving all my stuff away for free. I am now fully participating in this digital economy and I am monetizing my data. And so if I'm a content creator, I'm not going to give it to Facebook for free. I'm only going to give it to tech companies that give me a digital asset in return. And that, I think, is the intersection of the internet or Web 3.0 and digital assets. And that's why we need
What
to create
digital
this.
asset would you get in return?
Well, it's going to be something created by whatever the next version of Facebook is. Whoever gets to that place first, they're going to have something of value that you can get back. And it's going to be in the form of some kind of, I'm going to use the word token.
Interesting.
And that will be your stock in trade in Web 3.0. And I hope that happens, because the more we can decentralize these big tech companies, the more it makes it about people that create the content that other people want to consume. They get to share in the revenue that's out there.
And it's not just creating content. It's actually protecting your identity too, and getting something in return for providing that information that now they're taking for free.
Yeah.
And the blockchain enables that. And without the blockchain, we wouldn't have the ability to monetize our.
It's exceptionally good for media. Think about what happens every small town in America. That small town news reporter goes out, he covers the city council, he finds out they're going to build a new swimming pool. He's hardly making any money at the newspaper. What's the first thing he does? He goes back to the office, he writes his story up. He's not going to print the paper for 2 days, but he puts it online and links to it on his website. Everybody gets his content for free.
Yep.
He was the only one from the media that went to the school or to the meeting to find out how much the swimming pool is going to cost. And Facebook gets 500 clicks and they can advertise to those 500 people. They made money. He didn't. He did the work.
Yeah.
That's Web 3.0.
Oh, and you hear this all the time from local news broadcasters, by the way, that actually this exact issue.
Yeah.
Where, they want to make it illegal / they want a law in place that would protect them, because they'll put out a news story and then, exactly like you said, it percolates throughout social media. These social media companies do make money off of this in their own way. And our news broadcasters, and you come from this in your background, I mean, they're going under, and these are the only people reporting on this kind of random stuff that actually matters to you at the local level. And it is kind of heartbreaking.
Well, and at the end of the day, that guy's not going to be able to afford to cover the city council meeting anymore, so that they just won't have it.
No, they'll just go
That's
away.
happening in every small town in America.
But explain to me then how it gets fixed if he owns his own digital assets, because this is very much a technical discussion that I think a lot of us just don't understand.
I think Web 3.0 comes in, and instead of Facebook, there's going to be another platform, or maybe Facebook morphs into this, where they start sharing the revenue that is with the content creators. And
which is what, by the way, so that's a bill, I think, that's out there, that the
I would
local
think of
news,
it as-
is that something should we be supportive of
it's
that?
going to happen naturally with the advent of digital assets, with blockchain, with all this stuff.
How would it naturally happen, though?
Well, as soon as you create the system to share tokens that have value, and these digital assets are now exchanged,
Then you won't give it without something.
But
in
why would
exchange.
Facebook even agree to it?
well, they won't initially, but at the end of the day, there's going to be a new Facebook. There's going to be a new Twitter.
I think they will if I don't know that Facebook would do it unless there's another entity that's offering it. So if you think about what YouTube did to monetize watching someone's videos. Facebook really hasn't accepted that model.
Yeah.
But I think it's similar in nature to that. So if I can, as a creator, if I go on to this new, let's call it new Facebook, and I post a video or post content, and someone shares that, that might in turn mean that I should get a royalty because I created the content. And that's not happening today.
Elon would be interested in this just because he's
too busy with Doge.
So what Doge is kind of it's a fake crypto, right? Like, am I crazy? Is that what it is?
It technically is a crypto. It's technically a cryptocurrency. Yeah.
Well, and there's this other stuff that makes people lose confidence, like the Hawk girl. So I read this whole thing. So remember Hawk girl?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you know Hawk girl?
You know Hawk You don't know
Mike
Hawk
is looking like he doesn't know
You don't
Hawk
know Hawk
I don't think I know.
Okay, we'll fill you in
there's
later.
This college girl, and she's just like, she's being interviewed by like, I don't know, like a TMZ, whatever, on the street kind of interview. And it was a crude remark, but she goes, Haktua, like she's like, which is like I don't know. She's like
getting a frog.
She's making a word out of spitting, right? Okay, that's what Haktua is, and it just became this viral sensation. That girl's got some business sense. All right,
I'm actually kind of glad I don't know anything about this.
You should. I'm glad you don't too.
I don't know how you don't know, but it's. I mean, you're gonna be looking into it after this.
I don't even know how to spell that.
So it just became this viral like sensation, especially with like younger college kids. It was just funny, and she merchandised everything. There was Haktua shirts and all that.
Yeah.
The girl made a lot of money really quick. But the one thing she did was then she created a coin, and you have to explain to me exactly what happened.
Non-fungible token. Maybe?
I guess that's what it was. Was that what it was? Since you know what she did, but it was like $ Hawk.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you could buy it just like you could buy anything. And then what happened was a lot of people bought it, shot way up. Every single one of her people immediately sold. About $50 million worth was just lost. Now there's this whole.
I think that points to the need for Fit 21 and a regulatory regime to prevent some of those market entrants that are what we would call not
and like how, and you can just create this. I guess my
cryptocurrencies.
question is, okay, so it's not so much about Haktua girl, all right? Like she went from America's darling to everyone hates her now. Okay, well, shouldn't have stolen a bunch of money. Because there's a lot of stories of like grandmas putting in $100,000. Now, how did grandma know how to buy Hawk money? I have no fucking idea.
You'd be surprised at the number of people that are in digital assets that you would never think have anything to do with it.
Dude, I mean, because I see how Bitcoin goes up and down, and I'm like, this is the last thing I want to invest in. It scares the shit out of me. But so people can just create a digital currency like this, and it looks to me just like a stock. Like what? I don't know what the difference is, right? You buy a lot of it, it goes up. That's what a stock does.
You know what I think of things like this is the part of digital assets that I'm not excited about. Like it is what it is. It reminds me of like 1984 and Cabbage Patch Dolls. Remember?
You got a lot of these funny references.
Like my sister had to have
Beanie
every
Babies Cabbage Patch.
Hey,
Patch doll.
I had a number of Cabbage Patch
People were
dolls.
paying like $1,200 for Cabbage Patch.
I wasn't paying that much for them. But.
Well, people were fighting over them in stores, right?
That's what you meant by the Beanie Babies. I remember now.
Yeah.
They were getting expensive.
Yeah, they get expensive,
weird.
and Americans glob onto this stuff, and suddenly Cabbage Patch dolls are the biggest thing they've ever seen.
But now Cabbage Patch dolls aren't worth much, and neither are Beanie
My
Babies.
wife still has them. You know?
I still have mine, but I couldn't sell my Cabbage Patch doll
to me
today.
reminds
Don't
me
worry,
of
we'll
these-
cut that out of the podcast so you guys aren't too embarrassed about these collections you have. Just kidding. No, we're keeping it.
I don't like those things. Like at the end of the day,
now you don't like those
I'm
things.
in.
I
like Cabbage Patch dolls. I'm just saying NFTs.
This is going off the rails.
Okay,
Dan.
Let's bring this back to seriousness, guys. Let's not talk about your Cabbage Patch collection and the entire wing of your house that you have for it. So you're worried about it just becoming. But how do you even stop that? How do you stop the craziness?
The Securities and Exchange Commission was created in the 1930s to protect Americans from being taken advantage of in a criminal or a way that there's not the right disclosure to make sure our system is safe. Like, let's be clear. We want the good players in digital assets to run towards good regulation. And they are. They're saying, help us.
Please help us.
Get us out of this world that lacks trust. And so we want the SEC, the CFTC, we want the Treasury, all of FinCEN, all of the major players in financial services to put out regulations that protect American consumers but don't suffocate innovation.
And this is a pivot point too, back to these new creations of cryptocurrency. Fit 21 tries to take a look at it and say, if it looks like a duck, it's a duck. It's gonna be this, and if it looks like something else, it's regulated by a different
just
entity.
categorize this thing.
But
why is it
new
fit?
players,
What does that mean? Fit 21.
It's fit for the 21st century.
Okay.
Is the
It's
but
not an
the-
acronym for. We love acronyms in
No.
Congress.
No.
So I was curious.
Financial innovation,
something.
Financial innovation,
Technology.
Blah, blah, blah. It's an acronym. Okay.
So now I've lost my train of thought.
Okay. So it categorizes.
So it categorizes. If it looks like a duck, it's a duck. And then when an innovator in digital assets wants to come into the marketplace, we have a regulatory regime so that
Right.
that puts a stop to say, okay, now we're going to look at what this is. We're going to decide what it is, and we're going to categorize it as one or the other, instead of just somebody putting something out into the marketplace that nobody really knows what it is, and there's no public trust, and it puts consumers at risk, like these fake coins.
Yeah. Hawk or. Bitcoin is even risky. It goes up and down tens
absolutely.
of thousands of dollars at a time. And I'm like, there's no way in hell I'm investing in that. But
don't conflate. A lot of people conflate Bitcoin
as the only
digital asset, and think of Bitcoin as like everybody used to call, like when I grew up, it was soda pop. It's all Coke.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So Bitcoin
in
is a
Texas,
digital
everything
asset.
is Coke.
Everything's Coke, whether
Depends on where you're
it's
from.
Pepsi. But it's a brand of digital assets. It's a brand of digital currency. But a lot of people also conflate a Bitcoin with stablecoin, and those are two separate things too.
Yeah. Well, and stablecoin is yet to really materialize, but that does, if I'm understanding your conversation correctly, that does seem like the proper future. Is something that one you can rely on. That's not just because Bitcoin to me seems like gambling. Like, look, if I want to invest and like maybe make a quick buck, maybe Bitcoin's my play.
But Bitcoin,
But at least I know the risk I'm getting into.
Bitcoin and digital assets aren't going away, right? As much as my husband's going to kill me, but when MP3s came on and we had iPods,
We're gonna have to report that. You just said it on the air.
Oh,
you know,
that's great.
Jeez.
Not literally, but. Years ago when we still were carrying around CDs in the big file folders in your car, he could not get his mind around an idea that we would have all of our CDs on one little iPad or iPod.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And he's like, I don't know why people would
remember
want to.
the first like Razor phone held 100 songs.
I know. You're
Man,
like, this
that
is
was
amazing.
cool.
But he's like, I don't know why. I don't know why people would want to have this. I was like, are you kidding me? You have every song in the palm of your hand. Now we have much more than that.
Yeah.
But it's not going away. Cryptocurrency, digital assets, they're not going away. I do think you're right, Dan, that the cryptocurrency is more on at least at this point, the gambling side. You're
talking about the Bitcoin.
Bitcoin, you're taking a risk. In the stock market, you're going to make a play.
Well, I'm talking about all of them. I mean, unless you can show me a stable coin, which I think I understand the concept of that. But all of the rest are based on
Stablecoins are not
demand.
risky. I mean,
Stable coins are backed by the U.S. dollar. They're not
right.
risky.
But
that's what we want.
But can I buy a stable coin right now?
Not really, no.
Okay, so that's the thing. So they're all like Bitcoin.
I shouldn't say that. There are folks out there that have stable coins, but they're not custodied in U.S. banks.
Okay.
And so when I think about stablecoin, the only stablecoin that I would ever engage in would be one that is backed by a U.S. dollar in an FDIC regulated bank, or an NCUA regulated credit union.
Yeah. The worst investment, and I'm not an disclaimer, this is not investment advice, but the worst investment would be a digital asset that's backed by crypto. So a cryptocurrency that's backed by another cryptocurrency.
Yeah, no, it doesn't
and then
seem
you
like
go
a good
all the
idea.
way to the other end of the
That sounds
spectrum.
like how we get into a 2008 financial crisis.
That's right.
Like a mortgage-backed securities backed by fake other.
But there are several different things that you can use to back the currency. We're saying that you can go as risky as a cryptocurrency backed by another cryptocurrency, or a digital asset
you do not advise
based
that.
by the U.S. dollar.
As a financial services member, you do not advise people doing that.
I am not. I'm not.
I do want to.
We're not offering advice.
We're not offering financial
back
advice.
up just a second. I want to do two things. I want to get a little techie here on blockchain technology, and then I really want to go into a kind of an outside the crypto subject on people's fears that the U.S. dollar is being debated. Just blockchain technology. Is there an easy way to explain that to the public real quick from a tech perspective?
Not
Electronic
exactly.
ledger is the way I get to it. So
Right. But
I
like,
think of
where
it.
is
I
it?
think of it like it's a spreadsheet almost.
yeah.
Like with every cell
That's how I
is part of the
understand it,
block.
but like, where is it and why is it secure?
Where is it and why is it secure?
Well, it
Where's
lives.
the internet? I don't
Yeah,
know.
because it lives on the internet. Ultimately, it's
Can it be hacked? I mean, because there's a story about like, once we get to quantum computing and the ability to do, and was it Google? Somebody just did something really crazy with a quantum computer.
So there are lots of blockchains. The first blockchain, of course, was that's what enabled Bitcoin.
Yeah.
There are lots of different blockchains. The owners of those blockchains provide access, but the blockchains, it's like a shared database. So if we wanted to create a blockchain, it's a shared database, but nothing on it can be changed without everybody agreeing to it. So it's secure in the fact that nobody's going to come in and hack it and say,
Right.
we're going to change the value of
And
this
even
or that.
Bitcoin, like,
that's a very good explanation.
right. And like even Bitcoin doesn't exist. There's no like person behind Bitcoin. That's
There's
the
no
other
one
crazy,
person behind
that's the other
Bitcoin.
crazy thing about it.
Could be multiple people
And
behind.
the story I read was it was it was one of the maybe it was Microsoft. I don't know. It was a major tech company, and they had just revealed their new quantum chip. And this quantum chip did a math problem that would normally take a supercomputer a trillion years, did it in 5 minutes. So the implications here are encryption. That's the real. It's code breaking. That's one of the main reasons you would have a quantum chip. Now, if you can break codes very fast, doesn't this upend the entire crypto industry, especially something like Bitcoin? Because what do people do with Bitcoin? They mine it. And what is mining Bitcoin? You're hacking it, right? Am I saying this correctly?
You're verifying the transaction. It's not like hacking.
Yeah, yeah. So you're using computing power to find
Enormous
money.
amount of
to
energy.
make sure that the math works out.
Right. And it takes a lot of computing power to do that. It takes a lot of energy to do that. So it's not a cheap thing to do. It's not an easy thing to do. But if you have a quantum computer, you can take all the money, basically, because you can do those calculations so fast.
None of the entries can be altered, though. And so when we think about AI, and this is a confluence of AI and digital assets, one of the questions that I had when we were formulating Fit 21 is, can AI hack this system?
Yeah.
And I guess in iterations, infinity into the future, some algorithm of AI might be able to get to that point. How long it might take to get to that point?
Well, it's about how
we
many
don't know.
calculations you can do every nanosecond, right? And if you have a quantum chip that can do a bazillion times more than your biggest supercomputer, well, that's an interesting problem.
But the only way it would be able to be done is if the entire AI took over the whole system and said, we're going to change it. Otherwise, we have multiple points of entry that prohibit
forget
that
about
from
AI,
changing
but
it.
mining, maybe explain to me the concept of mining. Maybe I'm not understanding the concept of mining. Like why is Bitcoin the only one that does this? Or are there other cryptos? Like, well, why is that even a thing? It basically allows you to get Bitcoin on your own without actually buying it.
That's because you're looking for verification of the transaction. So we have a peer-to-peer network that logs information.
Yeah.
And it takes it securely records any information. It's a peer-to-peer network. If I'm going to look at this shared database, it's across multiple computer systems. New entries can be entered into the system, but they can't be altered. Mm-hmm. So when a new entry is entered into the system, it can be verified, and that is when a coin is created.
The bottom line is blockchain is better than anything we have right now. If you think about how...
Well, that's true.
Yeah,
for sure.
Think about it.
Because if you're talking about hacking stuff, then we're all screwed. Let's just be honest.
Here's a situation that happened in my district. This lady gets a call from a number, and it says on there, let's say, First State Bank. Well, she banks at First State Bank. And she gets a call. The lady on the phone says, hey, we're just verifying our security protocols. We're going to send you a text to your phone. Would you just tell me the numbers so that I can verify that it's right? Oh, she says, okay. Her bank called. So they said 1, 2, 3, 4.
Don't do that.
She says, well, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So the fraudster then now has her PIN. He's into her bank account in Nebraska. immediately ships the money to Atlanta. From Atlanta, it goes to New York, and from New York, it goes to Europe. And that transaction there, I mean, she's literally got maybe an hour to get to her bank to stop it in Atlanta to New York before it goes overseas. The blockchain is not going to let those folks get away with that as easily because it's instantaneous. You know where it goes. You know, this fraud is happening everywhere. Fraud is probably one of the biggest things that financial services has to deal with because the more things are electronic, the more things can be hacked. We have to leverage the power of blockchain.
How does the blockchain not let it happen?
Well, you can trace where it goes. You know, at that point.
But then who's the authority that then can then recover the money?
Well, as soon as they start creating pathways, you know, fraud detection services, banks, the
okay, so
Federal
it's still
Reserve.
the same. The authority is still the same. The bank, the FBI, the whatever.
Right now, it goes over to Europe, but we don't know where it goes. Like with blockchain, we will be able to trace that transaction from Lincoln, Nebraska to its endpoint, and
everywhere in
shut
between.
Down these fraud networks.
Yeah,
and
we're seeing that again with my work on the cartel stuff. We're seeing that as long as you have the right programs to do it, which is something we actually need to give them more of. But
when our monetary system's on those shared databases, like Erin was talking about, and she did a really good job talking about how that works, that will allow our law enforcement folks to do an even better job protecting Americans and scraping back that money and stopping these networks from coming to our system.
Yeah, I guess the doomsday story I heard was not so much about the tracking and hacking the system, but hacking the mining. Because the mining is predicated on the ability of a computer to do a lot of calculations very quickly. It's like, so you're putting in this investment into a bunch of supercomputers, you're putting in the investment into powering those computers. People do it all over West Texas, for instance, because you put a bunch of computers in a Connex box, you've already got oil out. This is why they do it. And they make money by creating coins. I still don't understand how that happens. You explained it, but I'm too stupid to get it. I need it like visually written, like somehow. And we'll get to that one day. And we're running out of time, so I really want to hit one last question, which had nothing to do with crypto, but just the question I think we all get from our constituents sometimes, which is the worry that China. The BRICS in general are trying to undermine U.S. currency and prevent us from being the reserve currency of the world. How worried should we really be about that?
I worry about China every single day. I think with their market power, their superpower status, their economy, their population, it's a real threat. Look at what we've been able to do with sanctions on Russia. Mm-hmm. Our financial sanctions have dealt Russia a series of blows. Now, they don't admit
and we've
it.
held back a lot.
Yeah,
Biden has refused to, and that's
we could be doing
discussion.
more, and that's the way to win wars, right? Use our financial dominance. I think when you've got China teaming up with India, with Brazil, with all these other companies,
Africa.
They see the continent of Africa as the next big opportunity for the world, and
the
we should too.
population is massively increasing there.
Right.
I mean, for no other reason, that could be the reason.
You get those
Population
folks
matters.
using a currency that's not the U.S. dollar. Suddenly, one of the things China likes to do, because everything's through the People's Republic, they manipulate their currency all the time. I see it. Nucor Steel used to tell me all the time, they're dumping this steel on us. They're manipulating their currency. These are not good actors. Our financial system is well regulated, but it's a market-driven, protected, reliable. When you put your money into a bank in America or a credit union, it's safe. That's not necessarily the case in an African country or a South American country or even some countries.
So now you're kind of making the counter argument to what you just said. You're worried about it, but also we have a lot of advantages that I think we should.
We do.
Right?
We do have advantages. I worry about China for some of the same reasons, but I think of this as a space race, right? We wanted to be the first to the moon. We wanted to be the first to be the explorers of that.
If you believe we landed on the moon.
If you believe we landed there, yeah. But we were,
What's wrong with you people?
but we want,
We're joking.
We're in a space race to see who can get this done better and done first. And again, I go back to, there's a threat of China for all of the reasons that Mike just mentioned. But if they get to stablecoin status backed by their currency and everybody starts to adopt that, that's a real threat to the US dollar. And that's why we have to get this right and quickly.
Well, this is a great, I think, takeaway that I've gotten from this conversation is the need for a stable coin. I'm still not sure what that is, but I am happy that we have smart people in the Financial Services Committee that understand this stuff. And sometimes I like to do thee podcasts just to prove to the American public that not all congressmen are total morons, and we have really smart people doing really good work.
Thank you.
So I appreciate that. And I know you got to go because we could talk about a whole bunch more stuff that I think is super interesting.
Well, then that's a good reason to have us back on.
We should. We can do it regularly.
Yeah,
yeah.
Great.
And especially if this
I'll have to get a hold of my
becomes
agent.
law.
See how I'm.
Did
Wait,
anyone
what?
ever tell you have a voice for radio?
Yeah.
A face for radio?
She's cool.
Did you have to go there?
Yeah, she's been waiting to use it the whole time.
Wow.
Well, I mean, if you could make it in between inventorying your Cabbage Patch Kids at home
And your Beanie
It
Babies.
tied the Beanie Babies and the Cabbage Patch Kids together, didn't it?
Yeah, it did.
Yeah,
It's nice wrap
it
up.
took me a while to get it, and now I did because I forgot that there was this weird movement of super hyper expensive Beanie Babies.
So
It
next
made
time
no
we'll come on and
fucking
I'll bring
sense.
the Cabbage Patch dolls and he'll bring the Beanie Babies.
I don't have either.
Oh,
My wife
really?
has the Beanie Babies.
Okay.
No, she has the Cabbage Patch.
So you have them.
Technically, it would be a marital asset, yes.
Spoken like a true lawyer. All right, Erin, Mike, thanks so much for being on. That was really informative. Thank you.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
us on.
Thanks for having us.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in to this special episode of The Contender. These emerging technologies are revolutionizing our financial landscape, and it's crucial we get the policy right to ensure innovation thrives while consumers are protected. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and stay tuned for future discussions with influential leaders and contenders. Thank you again for joining today's episode. I hope it inspires you to contend, work hard, and have fun.